All right. So here we go. That was easier than I thought. We already have a question. So let's see what lip and mouthpiece buzz. How long? A few seconds. Well, I like to look at those things in context of a ratio. Okay, so just to give you an idea, on a routine that runs about an hour, if your warm up routine is about an hour, 5 minutes of lip buzz, 5 minutes of mouthpiece buzz, that's more than plenty. So yes, let's say your routine is only 15 minutes, then we're just talking about seconds. Not even a whole minute of lip buzz and mouthpiece. Okay. I hope that answers your question. That was too quick. We need another question. This is our first time doing this. I don't even know if you guys are getting this or not. We'll see how this goes. I'm doing this from my desk. This is an angle that you guys don't ever get from my studio because now you used to get something similar to this. I switched it around. So over there is where I normally do the videos. And this back wall over here is where I used to point the camera. But yeah, this is my desk. I put it this way so I can see outside in case someone's coming out. Anyway, so yes, I'll just keep answering that question since that's the only question we have so far. How long? So let's apply that now to other exercises. Well, let's start by talking about articulation exercises. I believe that articulation exercises, there should be no limit to that whatsoever. So, and I'm not saying that should necessarily be the longest, but I think there's less problems that come from doing quote unquote too many articulation studies. Okay, for a balance of exercises, you can't overbalance articulation. That's my opinion. You can do, and so now going back, you can do too long on the lip buzz. You can do too long on the mouthpiece buzz. You can do too long on long tones. You can spend too much time on long tones. Okay. You can spend too much time on lip slurs. Scales, I don't think you can spend too much time on scales, except for that it might knock you out of doing some other stuff just in terms of time. We already talked about articulation studies. I do believe that everybody should do double tongue and triple tongue every day. And when I say every day, I mean every day that you practice. Okay. So let's see, what do we got here? Now we can talk about a little bit about what's wrong with doing too much lip buzz in each one of these different exercises. When you do too much lip buzz, so here's the thing, is lip buzz is the hardest thing we do. Out of all the exercises we do, lip buzz is the most strenuous because there's no support here. Once you put the mouthpiece on there, you can relax a little bit more. Okay? So without the mouthpiece, it's like working out too hard, working out overdoing it. It's early. So yeah, it's possible to overdo it with the lip buzz, and you, just like with any other muscle in your body, you overdo it, you're going to get stiff, and it's a little bit different from working out your body, because the performance, what we do on the horn, the stiffness of the muscles is a very sensitive, our performance is influenced so much by the stiffness of the lips. So yeah, we don't want to do so much that we get that stiffness, and now everything's more difficult to get the results that we want. The jazz shake. So we've got a question about a jazz shake. You know what? I really think that the one page. Let me go get my Arvin book real quick. It's kind of funny because I'm not one of those Arvins has all the answers kind of guys. But there's a page in the Arvin book that's just perfect for this. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Oh, this isn't the Arvin book. All right, so let me see if I can find this real quick. But it's just perfect for what we're trying to do with those shakes. Exercise, it's on page 44 of the Arvin book. Now we're talking about the grand method. There's some like chopped up versions of the Arvin book, and that's not what we're talking about. So if you're looking at the especially the one with the red cover, but I think the pages are pretty much the same in all the different editions. So page 44, exercises number 22 and 23. If you can do that exercise on a regular basis, now here's the thing. There's two kinds of exercises that we do on the trumpet. Two categories. There's exercises that you do because once you're able to do them, you get the benefits. But then there's exercises that we do on a regular basis because doing those exercises creates benefits. Okay, I hope that makes sense. There's two different kinds of exercises. This falls in the category of doing the exercises. Okay, you don't just spend one day on this and then boom, you've got the shakes. Okay, you're going to spend time on a regular basis going through that series of exercises, and the process of doing that on a regular basis is going to change the way you approach the lip slurs and the shakes and the lip trills. Okay, so that's my biggest suggestion. Now, the difference between a lip slur and a shake is that a lip slur is clean and a shake is dirty. Okay, so if I'm doing a lip slur, right, that's going to be, when you're striving to do a lip slur, you've got clean note to clean note back and forth. In a shake, we're trying to be a little less clean about it. See how I'm doing that? It's kind of smearing from one note to the next. That said, the skill that it takes to play that page of exercises that I just showed you in the Arvin book, the skill that it takes to do that, you have to have that first. So get that lip slur skill going first, and then apply the dirtiness to that. Okay, the smearing of it. Now you can practice the dirtiness just by doing the mouthpiece. Instead of making it clean, jump from one note to the next, you can kind of smear it back and forth. But really, and the other thing I would say about the shakes is that if you don't listen to music that has those shakes, good luck with that. You won't even know you're doing it right. Does that make sense? So listen to some of the old big band music, some of the new stuff too, if it's got shakes. I mean, you're specifically looking for big band music that has shakes in it, right? And so, I believe if you've been on my channel long enough, you know that I say often that listening is more important than practicing. It doesn't mean you do more or less of one or the other. It just shows you where, just in terms of intellect and logic, if you don't have the listening, the practice time is pointless. Okay? So you have to be listening to music that has the shakes in it. And for that matter, you should listen to different shakes from different styles of jazz. Like listen to some old style, some Gordon Goodwin stuff like that. Now, let me ask real quick: can you guys hear me? And just maybe one of you guys say yes, you can hear me. Because I have no clue. This is my first time doing this. If you guys can respond real quick. Okay, cool. Thank you. Good. All right, guys. So I hope that answers your question. I think there's one more thing I was going to say about the shakes. I said get the skill first, and then I said listen. I think there's something else I'm skipping there. Maybe I'll come back to it. I can't remember now. Any other questions? So we were talking about, we did lip buzz and mouthpiece. Now we did the Jazz Etude shake. Oh, that's what it was. One of the problems with the shakes is that if the shake is at the top of your range, that's a problem, isn't it? So like if your range goes up to G and the shake is on an E, well, it's going to be rough, right? So you might want to consider, now is the time. If range is an issue, now is the time to start working in that direction. Okay? Now, most of you, I think I tried to keep the shakes lower this year. I think last year I put a shake on a B flat, and it was a short shake. I think just like a beat and a half or something like that, up on a high B flat. And I don't think I heard one person at all the different schools I went to, and even amongst my own students, I don't think I heard one person play that shake correctly. So this year I made sure that the shakes were lower this year. Yeah, so that's it. If you have trouble with the range part of it, it can influence whether or not you can pull off the shake at all. Okay. What else? Any other questions? I'm thinking about maybe doing this every week, and maybe not. I don't know. It's it's something I've been toying with. Originally what I wanted to do, all this time I've kept Friday open in my teaching schedule. And the idea was originally to teach remotely at different places around Houston. The problem was is that I couldn't find any place, like music stores or whatever. Oh, cool, thank you. Um, I was looking around for places to teach, and there was no place that I could find on a Friday afternoon that would uh, not charge me, for one thing. I don't want to have to pay to find a place to teach, but really I wanted to, because a lot of people, here's the problem with my teaching is, Houston is so huge that, and not that I don't have students that won't do that. In fact, all my students travel. The farthest, I remember I used to teach a student from Lufkin, and he would travel 2 hours to get here. They'd have a lesson and then 2 hours back home. He was giving up 5 hours, and him and his father was giving up 5 hours of his Saturday to have lessons. But most people won't do that. So I thought if I gave master classes every Friday and, 4 different places in Houston, then I could help out more people, but it just never worked out that way. So what I thought was, is that I could, do this instead, right? I mean, this is even better. This is your first year doing Jazz Region, and you need to know some tips to be good in jazz. Yes, I think the most important tip for being good at any style of music is to saturate your ears in that style. There's no better tip than that. There's no better advice you could get from anybody than that. And it doesn't matter what style it is. And here's what I believe. However much time you spend in band, okay, and I'll explain why I say this. However much time you spend in band during the week, you need to spend at least that much time listening to music. And if what you're trying to get better at is jazz, then what you should be listening to is jazz. So let's say, for example, your band meets 5 hours during class time, and maybe you'll have 3 hours of sectionals and stuff like that. Then you're looking at 8 hours of listening a week. That's what I tell my students. Now, how many of them pull that off? Some of them do, some of them don't. Oh, that would be great. If you could get your whole section, that would be cool. Okay, so talking about the jazz etudes, the first etude should be legato articulation, right? Except otherwise, unless it's marked otherwise. Okay, so now here's the thing about articulation in swing. And there's some people that disagree with me about that. Okay, and so there's a lot of opinions, but I think perhaps the opinion I have is more common. You're supposed to slur the upbeat to the downbeat. If you didn't know that, then consider yourself informed at this point, okay? You're supposed to slur the upbeat to the downbeat. Now, that's a general rule, and that rule in jazz is to be broken. You have to, that's what the listening is so important for. If you're not listening to swing, you won't intuitively understand where to break that rule. But the general rule is, so if I'm doing a C major scale, That's what we want. Now, what we don't want, and that's why I said for the swing stuff, you want legato tongue, because what we don't want, we don't want that. I call that Ricky Tick. Okay, that's Ricky Tick. That's not, and I did a video on Ricky Tick. Maybe, I don't know if I can add cards to this afterwards, but if you come back to this later, I'll try to put a card up here that goes to the video for Ricky Tick. So Ricky Tick is when the downbeat is short and you still do that slur thing. Right? I'm not very good at imitating that. So Ricky Tick is not desirable. Not in the context that we're doing here. There are some gigs that you can play that require Ricky Tick swing. But what we're doing at the all-state level, at all region, and probably most of you in your school jazz bands, we don't do staccato downbeats. It's not supposed to be separated. And part of the problem with classical players that are trying to switch to jazz, not switch, but trying to also do jazz, is that in classical, there's this natural separation that happens between the notes. And so if you don't, so the way the notes feel when you're playing swing, the air should just be coming out. And then one of the differences between and swing is that in swing you have like these notes that jab out here and there, right? Right? You have that. Okay? And in classical, that's like not allowed. In classical, unless it's written with an accent, it's not allowed. In classical, all the notes are supposed to be exactly the same. Well, great. I'm glad you love the etudes. I mean, the videos, about the etudes. So articulation on the second etude should also be legato. Now, here's another thing that I haven't said yet, is that in jazz, and this is the part that not everyone agrees on. Sorry about that. In jazz, the slurs are interpretive. That's why you look at the etude, there's no slurs on the etude except for in specific spots. The way jazz is written, when you have a slur written, that's that's the composer saying, I want you to slur here. The rest of it doesn't have slurs, and you're to slur what sounds right to you. One thing that's interesting, I found myself slurring in different places when I did the slow version and I did the fast version. I noticed that I was slurring in different places. And it's not a right or a wrong way to slur. It really is how you feel that day. Right? So like on the third etude, when I did the faster version, it felt more right to tongue almost every note. But on the slow version, it felt more correct to slur most of it. And neither one of those is right or wrong. And I think here's one of the problems when it comes to these contests, is thinking that there's a right way to do it. There is not a right way to do it. Beyond, getting the right notes and the right rhythms. There's when you go into the competition thinking that you have to plug in all these different requirements, it's not like classical music when in that regard. It's not a matter winning jazz. The jazz audition is not a matter of fulfilling these different requirements. Okay, at least that's not how, I don't see it on the jazz stuff. It's paramount that you be more expressive. Okay, it's paramount that what comes out. Now, if what you do in your expression is not idiomatically consistent with jazz, then the judges might not like that, right? But it's not so much a requirement as it is a sign that you haven't listened to any jazz. Remember, okay, so I don't know how many of you are new. I'm real big on this cultural thing. And I've been talking about this a lot in my core videos. I don't believe you can separate the music from the people. Okay? And the culture of jazz is, there's a group of us out there that live this life. We live this life. And if you're not part of that, then the chances of you going to an audition and convincing, if I'm your judge, and it sounds to me like you have no clue what that jazz world is like. You could get all the right notes, you could get all the right rhythms, but I'll know that you're not there. And other judges might judge differently. But that's to me. Now, that said, you know what? If you get all the notes right and all the rhythms right and nobody else did, you'll probably still get higher up in the section. But we're talking about, especially at the all-state level, you could get all the notes right and all the rhythms right, and the other person might have some cracked notes or whatever, some errors, and that other person will still win over you. Okay? Hey, Gabriel. All right. So I hope that makes sense. So in all of this stuff, no matter what it is that you're trying to accomplish, you want to be part of that culture. You want to be one of those people, right? You want to be one of us. And the way you do that, the first step to doing that, this is going to sound like a broken record, but the first step to doing that is surrounding yourself with that music, listening to the recordings. Listen to a bunch of Clifford Brown, listen to a bunch of Freddie Hubbard, listen to the Duke Ellington Band, listen to Count Basie Band. Okay? You want to be good at jazz? Start being part of this community. And then the other thing is to, if I know a lot of you live in small towns. If you live in a small town, I don't know what to say about that. If you live anywhere that has jam sessions in non-bar, the last jam session I went to had 2 high school students there. Okay, those are 2 high school students that are getting it right. I made a video right before I went in. That's coming out, I think, in a couple weeks. How would you say the best way to make your solo? You're talking about improvised solo? Okay. So, jazz improvisation is 2 different subjects. There's the improvisation and there's the jazz. Okay? They're 2 different things. You have to work on both. Okay? So that's the first thing I would say, is that working on the jazz. And once again, we're getting back to the same subject. How do you work on the jazz? Well, the first step is to listen to the stuff. Okay? Listen to it. Spend more time. And once again, be involved. I was talking about the jam sessions. Okay? It doesn't sound like it connects, right? Because when we talk about how do I make a better solo, we're a lot of times where our head is is what notes do I play? That's how we think, and it's not your fault. I think it's the way, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm putting down band directors or anything like that. It's I don't want to say it's their fault, but at the same time, it is the way we are taught. It's the way we come up through this stuff that we think jazz is all about the notes, and jazz is not all about the notes. In fact, I will go as far as to say that the rhythms are more important than the notes. Okay? The rhythms in your improvised solo are more important than what notes you play. Not that the notes are unimportant, but the rhythms are more important. Okay? Now, there's something that on the improv side, there's something that a sax player told me many, many years ago, and it really made a huge difference. His name was Larry Slazak. He only died a year ago, I think it was, maybe 2 years ago. Wonderful man, just so full of wisdom. And he heard me play a solo one time, and he told me, he says, you know what, Eddie, you have great ideas. And I'm like, great ideas. You know, Larry Slazak's telling me I've got great ideas. But then he goes, but I'm not telling a story. Back then, and I had never heard anyone tell me this before, the solo is supposed to have shape to it. And this is one of the problems with just playing notes, is that you get your head out of that story part of what you're supposed to be doing. So I would say, beyond just listening, beyond just emphasizing the rhythms, the next thing I would say is look at the overall form of your solo. Every solo has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay? And so you want the beginning to have some shape to it. You want the middle part to have a certain shape to it. You want the ending to have a certain shape. And the reason I say it like that is because to follow just a formula that, because a lot of people, they'll start their solo, right? Real sparse. Right? They'll do a opening like that. But if you follow that as a formula, it's not necessarily appropriate in every context. So that's why we say it that way: a beginning, a middle, and an end. Sometimes we want to begin sparse. Sometimes we want to begin with just jump in there and club it. So that's what I would say, is start thinking about the big picture. Think about the big picture. And the technical stuff is I couldn't possibly talk about all of that in one session like this. But I do think that just to get started, the biggest issue is those three things: emphasize the rhythm, and don't emphasize the notes, and look at that overall big picture. Let's see what we have here. Mostly slur everything unless tonguing for emphasis. It sort of feels really bouncy when I tongue everything. So that's correct. So yeah, we did talk about that just a few minutes ago, but I don't mind recapping. We, generally speaking, we want to slur upbeats to the downbeats. So it's not that we slur everything or tongue everything. That's a little bit misleading. That's not really how it works. We want to slur upbeats to downbeats as a general rule, but then we break that rule. So once again, sorry for you guys that have already heard this. If I'm going to play the major scale, Okay. So in that regard, I would not word it the way you worded it. I would not say, you say, unless tonguing for emphasis. I wouldn't say it that way. Yes, we do tongue for emphasis, but we can tongue at other times too, okay? If that makes sense. All right. And, tonguing the upbeats, yeah, you got it. Okay, so tonguing the upbeats does sort of emphasize them. I think it comes down to how much are you emphasizing, right? So, yeah. There are times when I break the upbeat to downbeat rule and tongue a downbeat, precisely like what you're saying, to emphasize that downbeat. I don't do it. All of this stuff starts off being conscientious. You're doing something a certain way on purpose, but after a while it becomes second nature, and you don't have to actually think about it anymore. Okay, so, but yeah, you want to strive to get to where that slurring to the upbeats to the downbeats, that should be natural after a while. You know what I do with if you're brand new with swing, if you were my student, what I would have you do first on these etudes is actually write in slurs with pencil, because later you're going to go back and erase it, right? Go in and write slurs from the upbeat to the downbeat. Then the next one, from the upbeat to the downbeat. And practice looking in, because when you first start doing this, it's not natural. It's not second nature. Okay, so you want to write it in. You write in those slurs and practice it that way. Then, after it feels natural, you erase them all and start practicing it like that. And you know how I told you we break the rule? Okay, good. That's excellent. He says that for his first etude, his trumpet teachers told him to do that. That's exactly what I do. And so yeah, I talk about breaking that rule about the slurring the upbeat to the downbeat. When I say that, I'm not saying that I break that rule consciously. It's all subconscious. Once you learn how to slur the upbeats to the downbeats and get that going and make it subconscious for you, breaking the rule almost becomes natural. Okay? Now, just in case there are some players that are on this, that are watching this, that are ready for that, there are times when you will slur in 3 patterns, right? And it just depends on the flow of the music, the melody line. Right? And that's a very cool sound when you're ready for that. But the thing is a lot of times you do that and you don't even realize it. And okay, so it's like a broken record, right? I keep talking about the same thing because it's all connected to this one thing. It's all connected to this one thing. The reason you're breaking that rule usually is because you've heard enough of this music and you just intrinsically know that it should be like that because you've heard it so often. Not consciously, subconsciously. And that's the thing about listening. When you listen to, and like I said earlier, listening to 8 hours worth of jazz. Hours worth of jazz. Okay? If you're listening to 8 hours a week of jazz, you're going to subconsciously know when to break this slur rule. Okay? And I hope that makes sense. I can't stress enough, going back to that. So the listening is so very important. And the cultural part of it is so very important. The two of those things work together. Both of those things are extremely important. Okay? Any other questions? This went much better than I thought. I thought, I thought, well, I'm going to start doing these question and answers. And I thought, well, the first time it would just probably be me and one other person. And I'll be like, twiddling my thumbs, like, I don't know what to do. But yeah, this went actually much better than I thought it would. So I haven't looked at my calendar for next week. Maybe we'll do this again next week. We'll see. What I won't do here, let me tell you this, because I don't want to give you a wrong impression. What I won't do is promise to do every week. I can't do that. There's, in a few weeks I'm going to be on a bus doing an out of town gig. Obviously, I won't be able to do it that week. You see what I mean? And then sometimes, so I do teach on Saturdays. And sometimes I might have to teach early in the morning on Saturday, so that won't be possible. But yes, I think this was so easy. I don't know why I hadn't done this already. But I think in the future, we might make this a semi-regular thing. Okay? All right. If any other questions, if not, I will wrap this up. Going, gone. Okay, well, very good. We will see you guys. I know most of you are watching my other videos. I want to thank you guys for that. It's wonderful to see all the comments that I've been seeing about, people being helped. That's what I'm here for, is to help you. And, I know that there's a lot of trumpet teachers out there that do this kind of stuff, but that's what I'm here for, is to help you get where you want to go. That's the big thing, is that it's about getting you where you want to go. All right. So anyway, very good. It's nice to do this. God bless you guys, and we'll try this again maybe next week. All right. Thank you.